We shall continue from our previous episode with the circumstance surrounding the invention of the computer. In an era when women were expected to sew, sketch, or serve tea, one woman imagined a machine that could compose music. Not just crunch numbers, not just solve equations, but create. Her name was Ada Lovelace. Born in the early 1800s, the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron, Ada saw poetry in logic and beauty in numbers. She worked with Charles Babbage on his Analytical Engine, a mechanical device never completed, but far ahead of its time. And in a set of notes, Ada wrote something extraordinary. The Analytical Engine might act upon other things besides number. It might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music. With that, she became the world's first computer programmer, over 100 years before computers even existed. Then, a century later, came Alan Turing. In a time of war, while cities crumbled under bombs, Turing worked in silence. Inside a secret British facility called Bletchley Park, he built a machine that could decode encrypted Nazi communications. His invention? The bomb, a prototype of the modern computer. Turing's code-breaking work is credited with shortening World War II by years and saving millions of lives. But instead of being honored, Turing was punished. For being gay in a society that saw it as a crime, he was chemically castrated and died a tragic, untimely death. It would take decades for the world to say the words, "We're sorry." Today, we carry their legacy in our hands, literally. Your smartphone, your laptop, your global positioning system, GPS, your smart speaker. They all whisper the echoes of Lovelace and Turing, two visionaries who saw machines not just as calculators, but as thinking partners. Without them, the digital age wouldn't exist. And perhaps more importantly, we wouldn't be asking, what else can a machine imagine? And moving on, we will examine the story of microscope. In the 1600s, science wasn't a profession. It was often a hobby, and curiosity was the only qualification that mattered. Meet Antony van Leeuwenhoek, a Dutch cloth merchant in the bustling canals of Delft. He wasn't a doctor. He didn't speak Latin, the language of scholars. He had no university training, but he had something more powerful than credentials, a microscope. With his own hands, he ground tiny glass lenses, smaller than a pea, and made simple microscopes unlike any that had existed before. Then, peering through them, he saw a universe no human had ever laid eyes on. Bacteria, protozoa, blood cells, sperm cells, even the muscle fibers of a flea. He called them animalcules, tiny animals, and sent detailed sketches and letters to the Royal Society in London. They couldn't believe him at first, but they soon realized this untrained tradesman had opened an entirely new dimension of science. The microscope, once a novelty, became a key to understanding the living world. It transformed medicine, disease research, and cell biology, and in modern times, it gave rise to virology, genetics, and even nanotechnology. Every time a doctor analyzes your blood, every COVID test, every cancer scan, owes a piece of its power to van Leeuwenhoek. He didn't set out to change history. He just looked a little closer and taught the world to do the same. Moving away from inventions directly related to technology, let us unveil the history of the soap. It's easy to overlook the simplest things in life until they save it. Take soap, for instance. A humble bar that most of us squeeze out every morning, but it's one of humanity's greatest lifesavers. Our story begins over 4,800 years ago in ancient Babylon, where people first boiled animal fats with wood ash to make a rudimentary cleansing substance. They used it to wash wool and cotton before weaving, unwittingly foreshadowing its germ-fighting power. Centuries later, the Romans perfected soap-making as both a cosmetic and a medicinal product. Roman public bathhouses became centers of cleanliness and health, long before we understood microbes. Yet, even in medieval Europe, clean water and soap were luxuries, and disease outbreaks were relentless. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, when large-scale soap factories emerged in England and France. Suddenly, soap bars cost pennies instead of pounds. Public health campaigns in the 19th and 20th centuries harnessed this newfound affordability, teaching people that clean hands meant fewer epidemics. And consider this, during the 1918 influenza pandemic, simple hand-washing campaigns saved countless lives. More than a century later, in 2020, we learn the same lesson all over again. Soap isn't glamorous. It doesn't buzz or beep. But when the world faces an invisible enemy, be it plague or pandemic, the unassuming bar of soap becomes one of our strongest weapons. So next time you lather up, remember, you're wielding a tool born of chemistry, commerce, and compassion, a daily invention that quietly turned the tide against disease. Ancient Babylonian soap making. To complete this episode, we shall examine the invention that changed our way of life forever, the refrigerator. Imagine a world without cold milk. No fresh vegetables in summer. No ice cream, ever. Before refrigeration, preserving food was a daily battle. People smoked it, salted it, dried it, buried it in the snow. For centuries, winter was your only freezer, and summer was your biggest enemy. Then came ice houses, massive stone buildings packed with blocks of harvested river ice, insulated with straw. In cities, ice men delivered fresh blocks to homes every morning, storing them in wooden iceboxes. But the real revolution began in the 1800s, when scientists experimented with mechanical cooling. The first machines worked, but they were dangerous. They used toxic gases like ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and methyl chloride. Deadly if leaked, explosive if mishandled. These early fridges were mostly used in breweries, meatpacking plants, and ships. It wasn't until the 1920s and 30s that safe, home-friendly refrigeration became possible. Thanks to advances in chemistry, sealing technology, and compressor design. Suddenly, fresh food could travel across continents. Leftovers lasted days instead of hours. And vaccines, which require cold storage, could be preserved and transported around the world. Refrigeration didn't just change what we eat. It changed how long we live. In our next episodes, we'll dive deeper into inventions born from heartbreak, accidents, even look around you. That ballpoint pen in your pocket, the Bluetooth earbuds in your ears, the zipper, stapler, light switch, so simple, so quiet. Every single one of them carries a story, a spark of human creativity passed down across centuries. And behind those sparks, women who were denied credit, underdogs who worked out of garages and basements, tinkerers, rebels, and dreamers who dared to think differently, often in times of war, poverty, oppression, or complete obscurity. Here at Everyday Inventions, we shine a light on those forgotten minds, not just for what they made, but for why they made it. In the episodes to come, we'll explore ideas born from heartbreak, curiosity, even revenge. Some inventions began as mistakes, others as desperate attempts to solve impossible problems. So if you've ever wondered, what toy accidentally sparked a billion-dollar breakthrough? Or who the world forgot, even as their invention changed it? Hit subscribe, because the stories behind things are the stories worth telling.